Today, we'll begin our unit on the Chinese context. Now, what happens in China we can call diffuse religion. You see here, we can see from the slide that this word is rooted in a sense of pouring out. And what it refers to is the firmly entrenched coexistence of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, all in addition to, and in a sense overlaying, or developing in the context of what's referred to as Chinese popular or folk religion. Now, remember that Buddhism didn't enter China until at the earliest, the 3rd century BCE. Here's a map that can serve to remind us of this, showing as it does the historical expansion of Buddhism into Asia. The different colored arrows refer to the main branches of Buddhism, or point to represent the main branches of Buddhism, which, as we've seen, arrive in the Asian context according to different historical trajectories. The red arrows show Mahayana development, the green arrows Theravada, and the blue arrows Vajrayana. So if you'd like to pause and take a look at this, and can remind you back to Buddhism, which is one of those 3 teachings that we, for the most part, won't address in this unit. And what are referred to as the 3 teachings, Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, again, are considered complementary, dealing with different aspects of life. So some popular expressions of this are these: Buddhism to rule the mind, Taoism to rule the body, Confucianism to rule the world. Or Confucian in the office, Taoist outside, and Buddhism at the end of life. There's just sort of a series of these that point to the way in which people don't choose one as much as they express different ones based on the contemporary the relevant present context of their life. From Confucius, you might be able to sort of understand from Confucius, China took the way of the yang in terms of sound government, and we'll go into these yin and yang as we move through the Chinese context. China took the way of the yang from Confucius in some way, and from Lao Tzu it took the way of the yin as effortless action. And Buddhism, it doesn't really fit into this yin-yang dichotomy. China accepted the missionary Buddhism as long as it didn't disrupt the balance. And this image is a Ming Dynasty representation of the relationship between the 3, which you can see that is self-understood to be 2 older traditions inviting and caring for a younger one. Artists, along with the rest of the population, have long understood the role of Buddhism as a younger tradition entering a Chinese context under something like the care of the older Confucianism and Taoism. And through it all, the spiritual life of China has been infused with what scholars call popular religion or folk religion. Now, these distinctions are more scholarly than they are part of general lived experience. It's a way that scholars work to get a handle on the messy bundle that is life, but practitioners don't usually make this sort of distinction. They see and describe their activities, for the most part, simply in terms of worshiping the gods. And the gods come from the 3 isms, or 3 teachings, what we'll concentrate on, but also from elsewhere. And this is where we can see that the word diffuse is a nice description. Occasionally scholars get it right in a way that makes sense. The gods are sort of poured out from the isms into lived experience, and the isms or the pictures are for the most part left behind. Doctrinal divides set up between the traditions, or rigid individualized dogmas. They're just not part of the lived experience of most, though not all, Chinese practitioners. There's just not a lot of jealousy between the gods here. And popular practice tends to draw freely from each of the traditions. What distinguishes popular religion from what I've been calling the 3 isms, or 3 teachings, is that it does not have a canon of sacred texts, classics, scriptures, sutras, something like that. Generally, it's a set of or a collection of ritual practices that are rooted directly in mundane life experience, in our actual lived experience. In China, the most popular altar gods, and I mean altar like this, which is something that you sort of set objects of devotion upon and sometimes pray to or in front of, as opposed to this, which means other. So that's a very common misspelling in the world of religious studies. Remember that one. In China, the most popular altar gods are the 3 that are pictured here. Longevity is an old man. Wealth is a Confucian official. And blessings or luck is a male pictured with male heirs. Now, again, if only in passing, I'll point to the decidedly patriarchal nature of this tradition, that characteristic which we've seen in every major world religion we've looked at. It remains present here. There's no, we're on the same track. History is patriarchal. One of our jobs in this world today is to figure out how to mine the past for that shared or collective human wisdom that it can offer without also taking along with it the sociocultural norms of a time that we have, we no longer live in, that in which, any sense of egalitarianism or freedom in the way, human rights in the way we think of them just wasn't at play. So anyway, these three, Fu, Lu, and Shou, often called the Fu, Lu, Shou stars, as here. They were seen as present in the night sky. A couple of them were planets, one was a star. So these are the most popular altar gods, showing up not only in paintings throughout time, and this is a contemporary one, but also available for home use in figurines such as these. You could go online, you can find these anywhere, and they're pretty cheap, and they show up. They're just everywhere. They sort of almost as common as, probably not quite as common in America, but more common in China as the kind of, as is the sort of fat Buddha statue, which many of you will have seen. But in the bigger temples, you get all three. You get all three of these alongside Confucius and Lao Tzu and the Buddha and any number of other deities. Now, take just a minute to look at this Chinese home altar. And, if you want to pause right here, that's not a bad idea to look, and take a minute to look at this and see if there's anything that sort of surprises you. Okay, I'm going to keep going. If you were going to pause, now's the time. So what you might or might not have noticed is that Mao Zedong, who died in 1976, and who was himself a staunch atheist, is now in popular Chinese culture often treated as a deity, a powerful spirit. And you can see that his bust is set up here on the altar alongside, sacred figures. And one thing that this indicates is how absorbing or accepting the lived religion of China is. Mao spent his whole life saying, and we'll talk a little bit more about him when we get to Confucius, but he was staunchly atheist. He famously said, religion is just, it's a ruse, it's a tool. He was following Marx in some ways. Religion is the opiate of the masses. It's not real. And so, it's kind of a grand irony that he now shows up on home altars. So, and we might take a second here, just because we are entering China, which is sort of a realm in which scholars debate the relevance of religion, and to present a question that's come up again and again in our discussion, and it will come up again and again in the context of Chinese religion. What is religion? When I say religion, what do I mean by that? And some have argued, and some still argue, that neither Confucianism nor Taoism, especially not Confucianism, is a religion. So we're sort of kidding ourselves to say it is. And from a certain vantage, they might be right. From the vantage of post-Enlightenment philosophy, we can see and understand Confucianism as a philosophy, geared not toward the worship of a god or a set of gods, but to a human-oriented establishment of order. And from this same vantage, we might also argue that Buddhism, especially and maybe exclusively Theravada Buddhism, wherein the Buddha was understood to be a man, is a philosophy. That's not a religion. There's no God, there's no gods, says this, vantage. You need to have gods to have a religion, right? So the argument goes, right? People have made this and continue to make this argument. But again, I say sort of, okay, what is religion? Remember for a second back to our introductory conversations about the definition of religion, that tricky word with a contested etymology about which so much of the world's population feels so strongly. We use the etymological roots to help us in shaping a working definition that I've been running with throughout the semester that was rooted in commitment. Two T's? I'm going to put one. I'm not sure. That doesn't look right. There's two. And worldview. It's kind of, those two things kind of organize the world of religious experience. I suggested, and I still suggest, that we can understand religion as a mechanism of cosmic emplacement, something that helps me understand what constitutes the cosmos and what my role in it is. If we don't assume that religion has to look like what the so-called Western, so-called First World understands religion to be, with faith and worship and God at its core, if we don't assume that Christianity basically equals religion, that religion basically equals Christianity, that Christians have a corner of the market on defining religion, then Confucianism, like Theravada Buddhism or Taoism or Marxism, is a religion. It is a mechanism of cosmic emplacement. But, from a political vantage, Confucianism, again, it's just such a great example because it really pushes against our preconceived notions, which are often too easy, but they are surely healthy boundaries in our minds that help us make definitions, You kind of need those. But Confucianism, from a political vantage, you might say it's a political theory. From an historical vantage, it's an historical development. Okay, but we're in a world religions class, and we're looking at these traditions as religion. And if the last two traditions, if the last two spiritual traditions of the world haven't pressed against or challenged your sense of what is religiously relevant, then the next two are likely to. So from an RS perspective, religion is a worldview. It's an all-pervasive metaphysics, which is a word taken from Aristotle, and it means after physics, right? Remember, after you've sort of figured out what you can see, touch, smell, hear, all that, then you think about what's after that, what emplaces it. Metaphysics is a theory about reality, a science of what transcends the physical. It's a system of cosmic emplacement, and where you stand in the cosmos determines, what's valuable. What you ought to do, or what you ought to honor, to avoid, to judge. It determines when you ought to pray and when you ought to fight. And so we might spend some time thinking about it in our own lives. Anyway, back to China. Some prevalent shared beliefs in Chinese diffuse religion. Across the board, we see an organic view of an interconnected and changing universe, which is peopled by spirits, including dead ancestors, and in which unseen forces can be influenced by human acts or petitions. So these unseen forces, like, say, the ancestors, which play a huge role, they do have a hand in shaping our world. So the story goes, so this belief articulates, and we can do things. We can petition them, we can pray to them, we can talk to them, and we can convince them to tip the scales in our favor. So that's part of what is shared among these diffuse religions. There's a clear sense of non-duality in terms of the transcendent and the mundane. It's a real permeable barrier between what I can see and what I can't see. Those things interact. But that said, it isn't so much common beliefs as it is a shared ritualism that unifies East Asian spiritual traditions. The staples of popular religious practice are these: divination, sacrifice, and ancestor worship. And we'll turn in the next lecture to the early dynastic roots of these practices in China, and look at some of the ways that these practices continue to manifest in the contemporary world.